Welcome back to Boas and Balls, and I'm Scooby-Doo. And this is Caesar, my pinstripe. Don't really have a whole lot to talk about. I was gonna talk about a few things, but then I decided I'm not gonna because I just sound like I'm, shitting on people, and I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to call anybody out or anything like that. We're always gonna have our disagreements on enclosures and all that. But the only thing I can say is anybody that out there that, looks at my setup and thinks that I'm a horrible person, the only thing I have to say to you is how often does your snake go off food? I don't have food strikes. None. Don't eat this week, they eat next week. That's not a food strike. You can argue your point all day long, and all I have to do is say one thing. How well does your snake eat? And that's what would tell me whether your setup's on point or not. If your setup's not on point, I don't care what time of year it is. My snakes eat year round, like clockwork. Boom, boom, boom. Have them out all the time. Hold them on food day. I've held them right before I fed because I opened them up and noticed that they had gone to the bathroom, so I'll clean them and then stick them back in there. And they ain't back in there more than a minute, and I'm already offering them food, and they take it. So, anybody that second guesses your setup, as long as your snake as long as your ball python eats like clockwork and has, you're doing things fine, because I don't care. A ball python, if it is stressed in any way, it will not eat, plain and simple. And that's why people say, ball pythons don't make good pets because, the food strikes and all that. But that's why, and everybody wants to shit on breeders, and I don't really consider myself a breeder. I've had 3 clutches in the 4.5 years I've had ball pythons, so I don't consider myself a breeder. I don't have racks because of me having so many snakes. I have them in racks because here in Maine it gets cold here in the wintertime, and it's a dry climate here in the wintertime, and these racks work best for me for holding heat and for holding humidity. I have perfect sheds. My snakes all eat like clockwork. I don't just say that. I mean, I can show you on my calendar that I have hardly ever have a food strike. And I don't have food strikes. I just have, this snake's in blue. It doesn't want to eat, so it'll eat the following week after it's shed. Seriously, I don't have food strikes, So for anybody to say that, and nobody's come at me saying that I'm keeping my snakes wrong. But I know there's people out there that watch these videos, and think, because they have them in a PVC enclosure and all that they love their snakes and respect their snakes more than I do. That's bullshit. Bullshit. But, and the biggest advice I have too is find yourself a couple, 3 or 4 people that you trust and know that they really love their animals and respect the animals. Watch those videos. Watch those people. The more you watch, the more videos you go out there and you watch, you're going to come across those people that talk a good talk and sound very professional and sound exactly that they know exactly what they're talking about and all that. And they are some of the worst people to get advice from because they're so full of themselves and stuck in their head and thinking all this new science and stuff all like that. It's not the same as it used to be. Scientists used to go into their work with an open mind. Scientists don't have an open mind anymore when they're doing their tests and stuff. They already have a motive that they're trying to reach, and it's all about the money. It has nothing to do with studies and all that. They've already got in their head what they want to push. I really think that I feel that basically people going out into any field with an open mind just isn't happening anymore. Everybody's got an agenda to push, and they are so into their own self that they just want to push their way like that's the only way. There's plenty of ways, and I've said it plenty of times. Racks and tubs aren't the only way, but tubs and racks, for the most part, I think most ball pythons do great in. Regardless, you can always stick a ball python in a tub or a rack and they will do great. You know, now I can't say the same thing about a glass or a PVC enclosure, and I definitely don't think bigger is better when it comes to ball pythons. I don't think tiny and you know, I don't think a ball python, you know, this size and, you know, a VE6 tub is appropriate. Absolutely not. But it also depends on that snake. You might have a snake this size that if you put him in a CB70 tub or a big enclosure, it's going to go off food because they're stressed. You know, and if your snake is gone 2 or 3 months without eating, I just did a tub setup a couple, 2-3 videos ago. Set yourself up a tub. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. If your snake is gone 3 months without eating, set up a tub like I showed in that video, a couple videos back. Set up a tub, put your snake in there, leave it just 1 day in that tub, then offer it food. I'd almost bet $1,000 your snake's gonna eat. If you set it up the way I told you, and your snake has gone months without eating, put it in a tub. Prove me wrong. I bet within a day. Normally all mine, like Cleo, when I took Cleo out and I finally put her in that CB70 tub, I only gave her 3 days and then offered her food and she ate it. She was 6 months off food. You know, in the enclosure that I got her with, you know, that she had supposedly been in there her whole life, all kinds of decorations and all that, and you know, she ate the first 3 meals with me like clockwork, and then she went off food for 6 months, the whole winter. You know, and I put her in that CB70 tub because my buddy finally talked me into doing it, and he kept telling me, I'm telling you, you stick her in there, she's gonna eat. I stuck her in there, and 3 days later I offered her food and she ate, and she's been eating like clockwork ever since. Come from that 4x2x2, got all kinds of room, and likes it better in a CB70 tub. You know, and like I said, I'm not sitting here shitting on PVC enclosures. There are snakes that do wonderful in them, you know, and there are ball pythons that do wonderful in them. But overall, I would say more than half of ball pythons do not do good in glass enclosures or PVC enclosures. You know, definitely not from get-go. You know, it will put them off from food. And so stop watching me. You know, if you're so, you know, if you would disagree so bad with what I have to say here, just stop watching. You know, because I'm not pushing any agenda here. I just know overall, and I've seen it with other people's snakes. I have people that tell me all the time that their snakes have gone off food, and I ask them, you know, what kind of enclosure. And I'm not trying to go, oh yeah, I'm right. No, because normally when a snake is off food and I ask them, well, what kind of enclosure you got them in, and they say PVC, or they got them in a glass tank, and you know, and they've got all kinds of, you know, stuff to hide and all that, but the snake still is not happy, you know. So if you're getting stuck sheds, your snake's not eating, you need to adjust your setup. And I'm not saying you have to take them out of that glass enclosure or whatever, but you're gonna have to get it on point. You're gonna have to get it to where the snake likes it, not where you like it. Too many people care about what they think and how they feel. That snake doesn't feel like we feel. It doesn't have the same sort of feelings we have, you know. And I'm not saying that they're stupid and they don't have the mind, you know, smart enough brain to not like, you know, to not get, you know, any enrichment from interacting with us or anything like that. No, I absolutely feel that my snakes have some sort of feelings for me. You know, now, like my dog, absolutely not. Most of it is just the trust thing. You know, and that might be all you ever get, you know, out of your snake is it trusting you. You know, and that right there is awesome, because then you can do whatever you want with them and it's never an issue. They don't care, you know. And you can see this guy's moving around. I've had to keep moving around with him, you know. I really feel that you know, safe feeling ball python, safe feeling snakes, they do move around. My ball pythons all move around, you know. I wouldn't say they're as active as, you know, my boas sometimes, but they always move around. I don't have any that just stay balled up or just want to stay, you know, in one certain spot. They're constantly moving around. But he's not really trying to get away from me. Cleo, when she was in that enclosure, when I took her out, because I thought, oh, she's moving around all the time, you know, she's constantly roaming the front of her enclosure, so she wants to come out and wants to be held. And when I take her out, yeah, she never gave me any issue. She you know, she always seemed like she wanted to come out because she come right to me. But as soon as I take her out, she was constantly like trying to get away. I mean, running to get away, like, you know, like she's trying to find, like, she is on a mission to get somewhere else. She didn't want to be held. You know, she just wanted to be out of that enclosure to go find some place to hide, is what it was. And she had plenty of places to hide. I couldn't even see her in that enclosure if I didn't want to, if she didn't want to be seen, you know. And she had 2 hides, and she was just constantly roaming, you know. Like I said, I put her in that CB70 tub and she ate 3 days later, and she has not refused a meal since I put her in there, and she's been in there 3 years now. So, and I don't put them in there because it's easier or anything like that. I have them in these racks because it works best for me here. And most of it is because it's just cold here. And I'd have a hard time. And her enclosure was spot on. I had lights in there and everything, and I do not believe in lights. And I know somebody said the other day that there's studies, and the studies I've seen say there's absolutely, they don't see where there's an actual proven benefit for UVB for ball pythons or, you know, snakes like that. Some snakes might get some benefit to it, but ball pythons that are normally hiding during the day and come out at night, where's their UVB that they're getting? You know, normally if you see a ball python out during the day, it's digesting food. It's not out there to get UVB light and all that, and, you know. But like I said, if you want to give your snake light and all that, that's fine, go for it. But I wouldn't give it like 8 hours or 12 hours of light for a ball python. You're just going to stress it, you know. And it's definitely not going to want to be out during the day. And if it is out during the day running around, it's stressed. You know, if it's not like a day or two before food, and they shouldn't be during the day anyway. It should be later that evening when, you know, when they normally get fed. You'll see them roaming around maybe a little bit, you know. And I do see mine moving around in their tubs a little bit during the day, but they're not roaming like Cleo. Cleo was just constantly moving, would not stop from the time that her lights came on in the morning. She was constantly roaming, and these were the same lights that were set up when I got her. Like I said, I took pictures of everything of her complete setup, the way it was when I picked her up and brought her home, set it up exactly the way it was there. And I understand there's different smells and all that, but you could tell she was held enough that that wasn't really putting her off. Because like I said, she did eat within 2 to 3 days of being here the first time, and then she ate like 1 or 2 meals, and then after that she went off food for 6 months. You know, she only lost 200 grams, 20, she was like 2,200 grams, 2,300 grams, and she lost 200 grams in 6 months, which is nothing for that size of a snake, you know. And it didn't hurt her in the least, her being off food like that, but it's better to have them eating than have food strikes be your common normal thing. It shouldn't be a common normal thing. You know, only people that have enclosures, glass enclosures, PVC enclosures are really the only ones that ever run around telling everybody, oh, that's just normal, that's just the way it is. During breeding season, all mine ate like clockwork. You know, during the summertime, they didn't seem as food motivated as they are in the wintertime here, but they always eat. I didn't have months, I didn't have more than a week. They don't eat this week, and it's supposed to be their week to eat this week, they'll eat next week. There's no food strikes here. So, and I got 35 snakes. So, and not that that's a big deal, but, you know, it's not like I only got 4 snakes. I got 35 snakes, and they all eat like clockwork. I don't have any food strikes. I honestly don't, people. You know? Like I said, you find yourself 4 or 5 people that you like watching and you trust them. Stick to watching those guys. And you can watch the other videos, but take it with a grain of salt, because like I said, you're going to come across all kinds of people that can talk a good talk, that sound very professional, very educated, and they're giving the worst information. I hate to say it, but they are. And they all talk about this new science, new science. I don't like anything new. Because like I said, everybody's got a bias, goes into all this scientific bullshit now with a biased opinion and with an agenda that they're there to push, not that they're actually trying to, you know, scientifically, you know, prove anything. They're just trying to prove their point. And that's why I don't trust none of it, you know. And I don't think all breeders are bad. I don't think that, you know, breeders all just have, you know, their snakes in tubs and don't pay any attention to them and this and that. Yes, the more snakes you have, the less attention you have to pay to you know, to handling and all that. And that's why I'll never get big. I don't want to be big. These are my pets, you know. Breed a few snakes here and there, you know, try to come up with a little money to put back into my snakes, not to put in my pocket, to put back into my snakes. I'm not your normal breeder. I'm not trying to make a bunch of money. I'm not even breeding this year. You know, I've only bred once, and I only had 3. I had 3 clutches. I bred, like, started pairing like five females, and I only had 3 females that took, which was no big deal. You know, it was I really just kind of wanted to do it to see, you know, if I could do it, you know. And then obviously I was like, well, we'll see if, you know, I can actually get rid of these snakes. And yeah, I got rid of 5, and I've got some that I still have, because nobody's into buying, you know, reptiles really right now. There are a few people still buying, but overall it's not like it was, you know, 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I mean, snakes were a big ticket. I mean, everybody and their brother wanted one. And there was a lot of videos out, ton of videos out. And maybe there's still a ton of videos out, and I'm not seeing them or something, you know. But which is fine because, like I said, I get aggravated sometimes, especially when these people are so adamant that they are right and that tub people are just wrong. I've never come out and done that with anybody. I don't feel that glass enclosures and PVC enclosures are for all ball pythons. That's all I've ever said. You know, there are some ball pythons that do great and that eat fine and shed fine and all that because their people have got it dialed in for that snake. They're not doing what's best for them. They're doing what's best for that snake, and they've figured it out and they've made it work. But I'm telling you right now, and they'll tell you, it's a lot more work than a tub. And that, I'm not saying, oh, that's why I do it because it's easy. Overall, I do it because my snakes eat. They shed perfect sheds. I haven't had any respiratory infections, and I've never had any issues here. No scale rot, nothing like that. So, you know, to say that somebody that has their snakes in a tub is just horrible, and then they need, you know, that enrichment and all that. Take your snake out. Give it that enrichment then. Don't just leave it in it. I don't care if it's in a glass enclosure or not. I'd still hold it. You need to hold it. You know, you're the snake's enrichment. Be that snake's enrichment. You know. He's such a good boy. And I'm just probably going to have him out in this video. We're not going to do a long video. It just, I don't want anybody to think that, you know, PVC glass enclosure is the only way to go, and I definitely don't think a 4x2x2 is the perfect enclosure for a ball python. I don't. I will say that. I don't think those are the perfect enclosure. You can make them a great enclosure, and you can happen to get a snake that does well in it. But overall, it's going to be a lot harder for you to keep dialed in to keep your snake healthy and happy and content. You know, and you need to realize, anybody out there that sees their snake just roaming, constantly roaming, it's not because it wants to be held. It's not because it's looking for an interaction. I know, I was there. I swore up and down, look at her, and when she come right to me, oh, that's obviously she wants to come, she wants to be held and wants to come out because she's coming right to me when I open that enclosure up. And she would, and then she'd climb up my shoulder, but then she'd sit there and she'd start backing down my body trying to get away. Put her down on the couch, and she's boom. She's not flying, but she's just constantly trying to get away. She wouldn't just lay there. I can take her out now, set her on the couch, and she'll just sit there. She might move around a little bit, but it's never to get off the couch or to, like, you know, couch surf, where she'd go from one end of the couch all the way to the other and then turn around and come back and then just keep doing that. No, she's nice and relaxed, looks around, does a little periscope, checks stuff out, puts her head down, moves around a little bit, but she pretty much stays content in that one spot like he is. He's not trying to get away. You see this? I mean, he's moving around, but he's not trying to get away. Now, your ball pythons that you take out and that are trying to get away, it could be because they don't want to be handled, but a lot of times it's because they're already stressed in their enclosure. And I'm just saying, get it dialed in. If you want to do glass and you want to do PVC, that's fine, but get it dialed in. You got to have it perfect, you know. And tubs are just a lot easier to keep them perfect. To where, like I said, I don't want just a few things right. I try to keep everything on point, because then I don't have to worry about any issues, you know. I don't have to worry about RI. Respiratory infection is bad, and you have to bring them to a vet for that. That's not something that you can just that you should home remedy, you know. And I'm not big on home remedy of anything, you know. If any of my snakes are sick in any way, I'm taking them right to a vet and having the vet check them and make sure that they're okay. The last thing I want to do is lose any one of these guys. You know, I want to keep them healthy and happy, and if they live 35 years, I'd like to have them for that long. And we're always going to have a good experience. it's always a wonderful experience. There's nothing better than taking a snake out when you're just having a miserable day, and you just feel like the whole world is against you. You pull one of these snakes out, and a lot of that just melts away, you know. Because it's amazing to keep snakes. It's amazing to have them. It's amazing to get, to have a good relationship with them, to where they trust you, you trust them, and you just know that, there's never ever going to be an issue. And if there is, it's just going to be a mistaken food response, and you're not going to pick up on it, and they might whack you one time, but it's not going to be because they're mean and vicious, or they want to bite you. It's because they get into a food mode, and they're weird. I mean, literally, they seem like a total different snake compared to what you're used to. I mean, literally, almost look crazed. Seriously, the way they move their head around, and the way they'll run. They'll run for that food, you know what I mean, with that crazy head movement, and just act crazy, and then you'll have other snakes that just seem like they're so chill that they come up, stick their nose, or mine still, even if they're in that crazy mode, they'll come running up, but they got to stick their nose on it, make sure it's food before they'll strike it. My bow is the same way. I think that's funny, because in the beginning, when I first got them, they'd come right out, and anything that I stuck in tub, they would strike at. And I know that. I never just stuck my hands in there because I knew better. But my snakes in the beginning, they were all great eaters. So in the beginning, they'd come flying out, and they would just be like striking, And now they've like so chill. I have some that come up and they stick their nose on it, and they'll grab it, and they don't even wrap it. They just like grab it and then pull it, and then the next thing you know, they're automatically just starting to swallow it. They don't even wrap it sometimes, and they grab it so gentle, like they're almost trying to be nice to their food. Anyway, I don't hate glass enclosures. I don't hate PVC enclosures. I don't think overall they're that great of an enclosure for a ball python. But I do believe that with the right owner that is willing to do whatever it takes, because if that's the enclosure you want to use, just do everything that you can to make it what's best for that snake, not what's best for you. Oh, everybody wants to make them, pleasing to look at and all that. Well, that snake don't care how that enclosure looks. It cares how that enclosure makes it feel. And as long as it feels safe and secure, it's going to be fine, But I'm telling you, if your snake's going off food for months, you need to dial your enclosures in, plain and simple. It's not really that normal for your ball pythons to go off food. It is when they're stressed. And that's what people ought to say. Oh, the only normal thing about ball pythons going off food is there's nothing normal about it. The only normal part about when a ball python goes off food is because they're stressed. Plain simple. Mine eat year round. I've got snakes that are 4.5 years old. So, and they eat year round. No food strikes. And I'm not saying that everybody ought to have, tubs or racks either. But for anybody to say that they're the worst and snakes get no benefit from it, well, I can tell you right now, there are people that have been keeping snakes and have snakes that are 20 years old and that have only been in a rack, and they're 20 years old. So somebody that's had snakes like me, 4.5 years, to me that's a big deal, but it isn't to these guys that have had them for years. And there are people out there that have had these snakes 20, 30 years in a rack, and they did awesome, and that's why they're still alive and still thriving. You know, I don't really think you're gonna find too many 20 to 35-year-old ball pythons that are in perfect health. You know, in a PVC enclosure. You know, there might be some, but overall, I bet there's more snakes that were just living stressed. You know, and a good way to tell whether they're stressed is shitty sheds. You know, they'll have sheds in pieces. You could have the perfect humidity, and if they're stressed, they'll have sheds in pieces. You know, not eating. That is a definite that something's off with your ball python. It's stressed in some way. You know, like I said, my males and my females during breeding season eat great. Even the females that I bred eat great. You know, so and do even during the breeding season. You know, eat like clockwork. So I'm just here to say that anybody that just says that, you know, racks are horrible and tub setups are horrible and people just don't care about their snakes, that's bullshit. It's bullshit. You know, yes, there might be some people out there using tubs that you know aren't using them properly, but I can tell you there's definitely people out there with PVC enclosures and glass enclosures that aren't using them properly either. So, you know, you're always going to be able to find people that do stuff a certain way that you don't agree with, and then other people that do stuff a certain way that you do agree with. You know, stick to watching them. You know, and you know, leave the other people alone. Just leave everybody alone. Period. Who cares how? I mean, yes, I really want everybody to keep and take good care of their animals, but if I don't agree with somebody, I don't watch them. You know, I just don't watch. I'm not going to watch that channel again. The one that was going around telling everybody that they think a 4x4x2 enclosure is the best ball python enclosure. I mean, I don't know. That was like, as soon as I heard that and that they really believed it, I just said, wow, this person's isn't that educated. You know, and then I was like, obviously they must not have very many snakes, or they just got into it listening to people say that ball pythons just normally go off food for no reason. Bullshit. They go off food because they're stressed, because they're not being housed and kept properly. That's why they're not eating. You know, I don't care. You'll never ever win that argument with me. That a reason that a ball python is not eating is because it's stressed. You know, it's stressed. That's 90% of the reason a ball python will not eat, because it's stressed. And most of the time it's because they're not being housed right. You know, and I don't care how you want to house it, you just got to make sure that you got that enclosure dialed in for your snake. You know, and a lot of times you got to have so much crap in there that literally you can't see it, and that's what's going to make that enclosure work for them. But it's not going to work for you because you're like, oh, I can't see my snake, and when I want to take it out, I can't see where it is, and I'm worried about taking it out. Great, then both of you are stressed. You know, no, I'm stress free, man. All my snakes eat, and that's the most stressful thing. I will agree, is when a snake doesn't eat. Well, guess what? I don't have that stress. I don't. So, but find a few people that you trust and respect, you know, to give you good information, not just they're not just going off their feelings. They're actually going off what they've proven to themselves. You know, and I'm still proving stuff to myself every day. But as far as this enclosure debate thing, I mean, like I said, there are snakes that do wonderful in glass enclosures. Ball pythons can be one of them. But you're going to have to get it dialed in. It's going to be a lot more work than my racks, you know. So, but then I just want people to realize that. You're going to have a lot harder time. You're going to have that thing dialed in for the summer. And then if you're in a cold state like I am in the wintertime, you're going to be messing with that fucking enclosure again. You're either going to have way low humidity, or you're going to have heating issue. You know, you're going to have to run all kinds of lights, and lights will stress out a ball python too. If you've got too much light for too long and too intense, they're not going to like it. They're a nocturnal animal. You know, that means they come out at night. Means that for the most part, you know, they're not out during the day. If you see them out during the day, it's normally that they're, you know, digesting food or something, you know, or they're out because they need that enrichment or something. They're not normally out during the day, you know, to where they have light or want to be in the light, you know. But hey, thank you everybody for the 14 of you that liked my last video. I brought to my attention that a lot of people out there just got broken like buttons, I guess. Or they're just haters. They just here to watch because they're a hater, which is fine. It's still a view, you know. And like I said, I don't like everybody else's videos either, as you can see. Because like I said, I won't be watching that person again when they're so adamant at telling everybody and saying that, you know, us breeders all have racks because we have so many snakes. And not all people that have racks have a bunch of snakes. There are lots of people out there that have tubs, and talk to them. Ask them about their food strikes. Ask them about the issues that they run into. You know what? You're going to find that a person that keeps them in a tub or a rack has a lot less problems too. And we're a lot more stress free. You know, I was so stressed with her in that other enclosure. I couldn't keep the temperatures up right in the wintertime. And then I finally got that, but I had to add, you know, heat panels, and I had to add extra lights, and I was just like, well, that's not, you know, this isn't feasible for me. And even in the summertime, then I had to turn all the lights off because then it was getting too warm in there, you know. And I only went off what the owner that had her for 6 years before me told me for information. She had Cleo since she was a baby, and I just went off what she was doing and what she told me. And she told me, oh, she eats great. But when I picked her up, she had stuck shed. She had lights on. She had no belly heat whatsoever, you know, which I did hook her right up with belly heat. I hooked her enclosure up exactly the way that woman had her, minus I actually gave her belly heat too, you know. And I gave her 2 hides. She only had 1 hide, you know, and I gave her 2 hides, and I gave her more plants and stuff so that way she could hide, because I knew that her coming to my house was different, and that, you know, in itself could stress her out a little bit. So I mean, I gave her more places to hide, a lot more stuff for her to you know, climb around, hide behind, and she didn't like it. I set it up exactly the way she had it with belly heat first, and then I added to it trying to get it dialed in, and it was never good enough for her. And after 6 months, I decided, you know what, her health was way more important to me than you know, any enclosure or anything like that. And I said, well, screw it. I'm going to go ahead and try it. My buddy kept telling me, put her in a tub, put her in a tub. I'm telling you, she'll eat. You wait and see. And I finally did, and he was right. She ate within 3 days of being in there. The first time I offered was 3 days after she was in that tub, and she ate. And she's been eating in it like clockwork. She's never refused a meal since. And she's 10 years old now. So... and she's been in that enclosure for 3 years now. She was in the other PVC one for close to almost 2 years. You know, before I went, well, no, she was in about 1.5 years, I guess, before I actually threw her in that PVC enclosure, and she does awesome. You know, all my snakes do great. They have perfect sheds. They eat great. You know, I don't have any issues, and I hold them all the time. I'm their enrichment. You know, and it works for us. You know, he's totally fine with me being his enrichment. That's why he's still right here. You didn't see me having to go, you know, keep pulling him away and keep bringing him back. You know, he's moving nice and slow. I mean, if he was stressed, he'd be moving a lot faster than this. You know, and he's just moving around. But this is my 2 cents anyway. I really am so over the enclosure debate and everybody, you know, overly opinionated. There are snakes that do great in both, either one, rack or glass enclosure. It's up to you to figure out what's best for your snake, and your snake will tell you. You just got to be able to open your eyes and actually really watch your snake. Your snake will tell you exactly what you need to do. If it's stressed in any way, well, then give it more enrichment. If you've given it all the enrichment that you think that you honestly need to give it, then try to give it a tub. Put it in a tub and just see if your snake goes back on food. You know, do not move your snakes to feed. I meant to say that too in a video. Do not move your snake to feed. They do not get enclosure aggressive for food. They're not gonna, every time you open that enclosure, associate that's, you know, it's only food time. If you're only feeding your snake and taking it out to clean it, yes, then it's only going to associate them 2 times of what's going on. It's either thinking that it might possibly be getting fed, or it's getting changed. If you take your snakes out, you know, a lot and all the time at different times and all that, you'll get your snake to the point where it's not going to be in food mode unless it's really that night or a night before. You know, let me see him. He's just sitting here. He's a good boy. So anyway, I guess this was just me shooting the crap, shooting the breeze, and giving my opinion. You know, don't watch people that are just overly opinionated, because they're just going to keep telling you what is best, what they think is best, and you'll get to a point where you're not going to really learn anything from people like that, because they're just overly opinionated and they're biased, and you're never going to get anybody to say that, you know, there's other ways of doing stuff besides the way that they're doing it. There are plenty of ways doing it, you know, different than the way I'm doing it. And I definitely am not saying that my way is the best way. I'm just saying that it's what works best for me. And if you want to go glass enclosure or PVC, it's gonna take a lot more to get dialed in than a tub or a rack setup. And people have been using racks and tubs forever. You know, that's not new science, and I don't need new science to tell me that, you know, that glass or PVC enclosures are better. You know, I've seen with my own eyes the difference, and I'm gonna continue to do stuff the way I'm doing it, because I feel that is best what's for my snakes, not for me, but what's best for my snakes, and them eating, you know, on a regular basis, on a regular schedule is best. I don't know who in their right mind could say that a snake that eats regularly and eats good, how can that be bad? How is that bad? That you've got your snakes that all eat great. Okay, so they're in a rack or they're in a tub. Who cares? The overall, you know, thing that everybody ought to be concentrating on is just keeping their snakes healthy and happy. And an eating snake is a happy snake, obviously. Especially ball pythons, when they're so finicky about eating, and 90% of it is because they're stressed. And most of it's because of the way they're being housed, the way they're being kept. You know, and I hope somebody out there that, like I said, that has a snake that's been off food for a couple months, try it. Try a tub setup like I have in a couple videos back. Set yourself up a tub. You don't have to keep it there, but it's a good experiment for you. You know, prove me wrong. Prove me that that you can prove me wrong right there. If you put it in a tub and it's been off, you've had it in a glass enclosure or whatever, you know, like what's behind me, or a PVC, and it's gone off food and it's been a couple months, and it has, like, doesn't even want to food, eat food or whatever. Try setting up a tub setup. Prove me wrong. Set up a tub setup, put it in there, leave it in there, 2-3 days, offer it food, and then let me know. Let me know if your snake ate or not. And like I said, you don't have to keep it in there. It's just an experiment at this point, And I hope somebody does it, because I honestly know your snake's gonna eat. I guarantee you. If you go and you set up a tub like I showed in that video, I almost guarantee you. I proved it myself. And I continue to prove that I'm housing my snakes properly, and that they're happy enough, because I don't have food strikes. They all eat perfect. So the ball pythons all eat so horrible. Well, how come I don't? How come mine eat great? So, but I do. I hope somebody does that. It's a good experiment. If you've got a snake that's off food, set up a tub setup real quick, and see if it eats. All right, this is Caesar, my pinstripe, and I'm Scooby-Doo. All right, everybody. Remember, if you can't be good at it. Cheers.